Hello, everybody. It is 3:03 a.m. Central Time on the 4th of June, 2021. It's Friday here in the United States. Early morning here in the Midwest. Got some breaking news for everybody. A noteworthy sized earthquake has struck off the west coast of the United States, anywhere from 5.4 to 5.8. We'll click on the 5.8. It's coming from the USGS. Let me click on a display capture so you can see what I see a little bit better here. So here is the information. 5.8 off the coast of Gold Beach, Oregon. Clicking on the earthquake, of course, we can turn on tectonic plates. And we can back it out to see the red lines I always show in my updates. But these are the plate boundaries. This is the Juan de Fuca fracture zone, the southern point. And where the star is where the earthquake is. Now you see this giant arrow shape that actually belongs to the Pacific. Pacific Ocean, of course, and the Pacific Plate. There's the jagged edges that pretty much push right into North America. This is the biggest earthquake to be reported off the coast of Oregon or off the coast of the Pacific Northwest, for the whole West Coast, in many months' time. Now that 5.8 earthquake follows a 6.1 that struck up in Alaska just a few days before. So the 6.1 struck on the 31st. Here we are 4 days later, almost 5, and we're looking at a new upper 5 off the coast of the west coast of the United States on the southern arm of the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. A new 3.1 has just been reported, but that may be a mistake earthquake. Anytime we get a noteworthy sized earthquake off the west coast of the United States or anywhere else, we can see other earthquakes be reported within just a few minutes elsewhere nearby, and then they remove them. Of course, it's a pickup of the noteworthy movement off the west coast. So this movement was expected. We were looking for new activity to come rolling in on the west coast. I even brought it up in my last update, which I did not record, but many of my Twitch viewers got to see that. I think there was about 500 people in there yesterday when I did the update. So this isn't the only noteworthy activity off the West Coast, but this is the biggest activity off the West Coast in many, many months. Anytime we see noteworthy activity off the West Coast, we have to watch downstream from where the earthquake occurs, and in this case, you can see the arrows, which way they point. So, sorry, I had to clear my throat. This is 3 a.m. update, jumping on really quick. But anytime we see an earthquake here, we have to watch in pretty much 3 directions. To the east by southeast, and to the south. Now, the first significant report, which I think is a mistake earthquake, but nonetheless, the shock wave itself heading over to the edge of the North American craton. So the earthquake struck out in the ocean on really the southern arm of the Juan de Fuca fracture zone, but with the craton diagram here on the screen. Hopefully you guys can see that. I hope that wasn't on the screen the whole time. That may have been on the screen the whole time. If it was, I apologize. But this earthquake, the biggest earthquake off the West Coast, I think I should probably record a legitimate update at this point and get it out over on YouTube. What do you think? Think I should make a real full update on this? Because we have another 6 that struck over here. We have this 6 that struck up here. We have Hawaii. We have a bunch going on. So this is just the update on the earthquake itself. Since it struck, I'm waiting for them to revise the magnitudes a little bit. So I think we should probably get into it. Let me turn off the display capture. Was the craton diagram stuck on there? I don't know if it was. No, it wasn't on the screen. Well, in that case, I could probably just go right into the update and just record the whole thing. Okay, that's good. Well, let's do that. Okay, so we've already gone over the earthquake that struck. We'll wait and see. Let's get the time on the quake. 7:52 UTC. It's now 8:07, so we're talking within the last 15 to 20 minutes this earthquake has occurred. Now, this earthquake, like I said, follows the 6.1 that was up in Alaska, prompting me to issue the new warnings for the West Coast. I told you guys, everywhere we were going to be taking a magnitude step up. So where there were 4s, there were going to be 5s. Where there were 3s, there were going to be 4s. Well, so far, we're at the upper 5 level. And that's nothing to scoff at, of course. We have to wait to see what the final outcome is with the magnitudes on that. But it all stems back to what's going on over here in the West Pacific, where we have our deep earthquakes that have been hammering into the underside of the plate. And I show this all the time, but I'll show it again. The deep earthquakes, what I think is going on, this wave pool showing us in a fluid, but I think VLF, very low frequency, so we're talking hundreds if not thousands of miles between points of the wave, but it comes into a fine point down below the plates, coming up out of the fluid-like magma. Now, when that hammering action happens, it then spreads up, out, and away. So it focuses in on itself. It can't compress down into the fluid, and so then it starts to hammer up into the underside of the plate. Hammering action then producing something like this, a standing wave, where we get the same size wave throughout the tank, and the waves fill in each other's middle points. So the peak fills in the valley as the wave passes through the tank. Let me show you. I can park my mouse right over it, and you'll see one peak touches, then the valley, then the peak, then the valley, or the peak, then the trough, then the peak, then the trough. Now that matters because we get the same sized earthquakes spreading out across thousands of miles, where the peak of the wave is coming up, and we get an earthquake. And then it comes down and goes back up, and we get another same size, or, oh, hold on. Sorry, again, I haven't talked in hours. Clear my throat. We get the same sized earthquakes spreading out and across and up and over and basically around the entire Pacific, but following a certain path in a somewhat clockwise direction. So let's go over here and we talk about the deep earthquakes. The deep earthquakes are raised high off the globe, and for forecasting, we have letter Ds where we expect the new deep earthquakes to take place. Those have been on the same spot for the last 8 years. We don't move anything on this map when it comes to the Ds or the arrows, and we watch for new deep earthquakes to hit these spots. They're expected points, forecast points. Now, the deep earthquakes are just the first part on this. Then the spread takes place, like I just showed you in the wave tank. But in this case, right here at South Philippines going down into Indonesia, let me turn on a plate map here from the USGS. And we'll go over here and show it to you really quick. So where Philippines goes down into Indonesia, look where they meet. Where they meet, we have a 6.1 earthquake. Why does that matter? Yesterday, in my update, if you caught it, we warned South Central Philippines for a new outbreak. It was the next spot to be filled in. It's close enough for me. Now, this 6.1 is the first 6 to strike here in many weeks. So 6.1 there. Why does it matter if a 6.1 struck over in Indonesia? Well, just the day before, up here in Alaska, where the big stack of earthquakes is, the swarm that's taking place now, a 6.1 earthquake struck there. That's 2 6.1s. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if really this 5.8, oh look, they brought it up to a 5.9. If this 5.9 was its own 6.1, or very close to it, that it's about the same size, it's taking a slight step down as it goes down into the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. So let's look at the Pacific overall, and really we start here at Fiji with all the hammering action that, like I just showed you in the wave tank video. So the hammering action coming in from the underside of the plate is where it starts. Then it spreads out and away, just like in the wave tank, where it's dropping off the same sized waves across the whole tank. As you pump it more full of energy, as these ends pump in towards each other or pull out away from each other, that it puts more energy into the fluid. And instead of getting chaotic and a bunch of jostling waves, they combine into a standing wave and spread. Now, I think this is happening with very low frequency, and it's happening across thousands of miles, dropping off a 6.1, a 6.1, a 5.9. But they're within a hair of a point of each other as it goes all the way around the wave tank. But the wave tank isn't like in the laboratory. It's this, the red lines. So it goes all the way around the Pacific, but it starts with the hammering action, and that's where the deep earthquakes have taken place, and they're raised high off the globe so you can see them easily in the past few days. So technically it's Indonesia that got hit, and we still have a big open area across Philippines, but the area is slightly shifted now. Since this area has been filled in, we have to watch the halfway point up on the north side, just as an example. Now let's carry on. Let's go over to the west. So we got a new 5.4 that struck at China, and I had warned the Myanmar border. This is not the exact same location as that 7.4 from 2 weeks ago. And we warned here, and it struck just to the north, up in the Himalayan, just on the north side. But it's a 5.4 to 5.5 quake. Over to the west, stepping stone path of the same size quakes, 4.5 and 4.5, and the previous days 4.5, let's see, right there. So it's 3 4.5s. Like I told you, the standing wave, imagine 4.5, 4.5, 4.5. It's amazing. Okay, let's go over to the west, and we have the same size quakes going across the South Mediterranean. So 4.3, 4.6, and a 4.0, and a 4.4. If you put them together, it equals the same amount going across the South Mediterranean. But it's not just going across the Mediterranean. It's following this W-shaped bend in the plate, where I had issued the warning right here at the pinnacle tip in between Crete and Cyprus. Now, Crete has been hit by a 4.6. Pretty noteworthy. I think we warned for up to 5. So to get a 4.6, that's, or in the 5-ish range, that's pretty noteworthy. Over to the west, the Pyrenees got struck all over in the west portion of Europe. This is western Spain. And then a new outbreak, still ongoing outbreak, north of Morocco. But hold on. Let's go over and look at Morocco. Morocco's right here. Look at the red line, the plate boundary. But we have a warning going over here in Algeria that I just issued 2 days ago live on Twitch. And the warning's for 5-ish to upper 5, but I think it should be in the 5 range. Or no, wait. Was that 4.5? I'm going to have to up it because the amount coming over is greater. It's now 5.4 and a bunch of 4s. So we have to up it by a half magnitude anyway. We're going to warn for a 5 over here in Algeria. On the back east, northeast side, we still have not seen any movement up in Poland. Poland needs to be on watch, and we have to warn for a step higher in Poland. I warned for 4.5 in Poland. We have to warn for near 5.0 now in Poland as well. Let's talk about Hawaii. Let's talk about this big old stack of earthquakes out here in the middle of the Pacific. And a few days ago, did a live update, and we were swarming with 0s, 1s, 2s, and a single 3. Told you guys we're going to take a step up big time in the amount, and here we are. We're not let down. A new 4 struck out in the ocean at the Loihi Undersea Mount. That's that volcano out off the south coast of the Big Island. But the other thing that's significant is the line of quakes that still carries on today, going across the Big Island itself, in a line across just north of Mauna Loa, this brown splotch there on the map. I can show it to you on Google Earth, but first I just want you to pay attention to the earthquakes. Look at them. They're going right across the Big Island. It focuses in on the Middle East Rift Zone. Sorry, it is 3 a.m. and I was not expecting to get on right now to have to do an update. So, line of quakes going across Big Island, big ring of them down right around the Middle East Rift Zone, and then, of course, the cluster out at the Undersea Mount. Let's look at it all much better view, aerial photography and undersea bathymetric measurements under the ocean. But we'll look at an angle like this. And now there's the big island. We got a line of quakes coming across pretty much the center, going on the north side of Mauna Loa. Here's Mauna Loa, the Greater Shield Volcano. And then a bunch of earthquakes down along the coast, and then a cluster out here, Loihi, where the 4 is. The biggest of the bunch is out here. Now this is down, of course, under the ocean, but it's going to come up someday. It's about 3,000 feet up to the surface. Now, up above it is Kilauea over here. And then up above Kilauea is Mauna Loa. You could also just say that Kilauea is at the foot of Mauna Loa, and Loihi is at the foot of Kilauea. So the earthquakes are going around Mauna Loa and then going over to this, the Middle East Rift Zone. On the south side, Pahala. On the southeast side, Loihi. And then going back up, let's go compare. You see, it goes right up to Kilauea, right past Pu'uo'o. It's making a line of quakes, actually, going from Kilauea down to Pu'uo'o, then down to the coast, then down to Pahala, then down to Loihi. So let's go look in a line from, Kilauea down to the east by southeast, right down this way. Well, wait a second. What's in a line going east by southeast from Kilauea? Look what's already there. Pointing in the same direction. A bunch of craters and calderas, and of course we get down here and we get down to the famous Pu'uo'o. The earthquakes are going in that direction. It's a line of them. But really, this is all tied to something else that's going on the Greater Pacific. So we were expecting a big increase in seismic activity in Hawaii because of what's going on around the rest of the Pacific. Specifically, the new eruptions up in Alaska, which now we have a swarm of zeros, a bunch of microquakes happening out here back in the middle Aleutians, back over next to Seismopochnoi volcano. I have not checked the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center, but you know what? At this point, we should. Nevado State Chilean in Chile, Sabancaya in Peru, San Jay in Ecuador, Fuego in Guatemala, Reventador in Ecuador, Nyiragongo still down in Africa, still going, Nevado State Chilean, and that's a bad situation down in Africa, but we've already talked about that previously. Ebico up in the Kuril Islands, 11,000 foot high blasts. I'm looking for any big blast or any new volcanoes that are on the list. But that's enough right there. Mount Sinabung has been reported by a ground observer over in Indonesia. That's in western Sumatra. Also Semeru going as of yesterday. I have to pay attention to where those are. It's crucial that we pay attention to where... Whoa, what's going on there? What? Oh. USGS site took a dive for a second. Okay, we have to pay attention to where the volcanoes are erupting. They do play in, and we can see an increase in the number of eruptions and an increase in earthquake activity next to where the volcanoes are taking place. The eruptions, in particular, the large blasts. So all the way over here, we're going to start to show you Mount Sinabung is erupting here at western Sumatra, Indonesia. We go a little bit to the east by southeast, and we get over here to Java, and Mount Semeru is erupting. We go further to the east by northeast, right in the middle of all this, and Mount Dukono is still erupting there in Indonesia. We go to the north, and Suwanee-Zajima was erupting yesterday here in South Japan, where the rings overlap on the islands just south of Kyushu. And then, further to the north, where the rings overlap here, we have Mount Ebico, which is erupting. It's not a coincidence that those are erupting where the rings are overlapping at each location. Then we call that a fulcrum point, like a bending point, or think of a balancing scale, and the middle point where the two arms are balancing. We go over to the middle of the Aleutian Island chain. That's where our swarm is, and that's where Seismopochnoi is erupting out there in the middle of the Aleutians, I think. I know, actually, that that's out there. So we go further to the east, and we get into a clustered mess of quakes, but the big stack is back where the 6.1 struck, which takes me back to the start of the update, which is this swarm location. That's just one of many swarm locations starting up in the Aleutians, going over to Alaska, down to Hawaii, down to the west coast of the United States. And if you watched my update last night, if you were live on Twitch, enough to be on there when I'm in there talking, we were talking about California and the number of earthquakes. You can see here, this is 48 hours worth of quakes. My longtime viewers know this is a dramatic increase in the number of earthquakes, and the magnitudes went up to 3.5 already. 3.5 and 3.6. Look where they are. Take a look. Here's all our felt quakes of the day, and the two largest on land, both of them on the San Andreas, both of them south of the Bay Area, both of them 1 magnitude or 1 point of a magnitude apart, 3.5 and 3.6. One striking at 12:15 UTC, the other striking at 4:34 UTC. First this one, then this one. And those two are both connected along this thick red line that you see on the screen here on the USGS map. That's the San Andreas, but it's also the plate boundary. Now I want you to think of these thick red lines like cracks in a plate that go all the way through the plate. It's not a crack just within the plate, not a little small hairline somewhere. This is a big crack that goes down through the plate all the way to the underside, and it does that all the way around the entire Pacific. Now this supposedly folds underneath North America in the dividing line between North America and the Pacific up here. And lo and behold, our earthquake is reported right out here on the south side of the Juan de Fuca. I want you to think of these jagged edges like saw teeth on the greater saw blade of the Pacific. And, ironically or not, Hawaii is right there at the middle of what we would consider to be the saw blade, wouldn't you think? But where these jagged edges come in, that's where the tension builds. Then we see a transfer go over into the craton. And the craton matters. You need to pay attention to it from this point on in the update, because the red earthquakes on the screen here on the USGS map, well, look, we have a line of quakes that already took place today down along the coast going to the east by southeast. Now, hold up. Is this a separate quake? Hold on. 8:17 UTC. We have a new 5.9 earthquake that has just struck. We have a second 5.9 reported at 8:17 UTC in an area to the east by southeast by several miles. Now, this is breaking news. We have two 5.9s. The first one reported at 7:52 UTC, and here we are at 8:17 UTC. Two separate quakes, both around the same size. We have a big fracture that's taking place. Now, I'm going to go pull the coordinates. We're going to go look at them on Google Earth where the original 5.9 struck, and then we're going to go look up the other 5.9. This is a big deal now. So why would it be a big deal? Well, we have a fracture that's happened from one point to the other. It's taken about a half hour to develop, and a break at one end and the other is another way to look at this. So I'm going to mark this new 5.9 here. We'll put down the place mark for it, or the old 5.9, the first one. And 5.9 on June 4th, 2021. Number 1. Okay. And let's pull the other. A new 5.3 has struck in between the 5.9s now. This is truly amazing to see happen live. A new 5.3 has now been reported at the middle point in between the two 5.9s. We'll go pull that up in a second. I'm going to plot these all in, and we're going to save them for future reference. You get to see something happening here real time that most people don't ever get to see, even professionals, which is a real-time breaking of a fault documented out by the earthquakes. And I'm going to plot each spot, and we're going to see the spot that just broke. 5.9s on either end like bookends, and a 5.3. Hey, speaking of in the middle, The middle point was just filled in by a similar size quake, just a little smaller. I'd say that's the valley in between the two 5.9s. But anyway, here's the place marks. So this is the new 5.9. Whoop, 5.9, June 4th, 2021, number 2. There we go. Oh, wow, look what's on. Look what's right in the middle, in between the two. You got to be kidding me. Let's go pull the coordinates. Europeans now reporting a 5.3. USGS lagging on the third earthquake. USGS has not weighed in on the third earthquake yet. It could be bigger or smaller. I would think bigger. I would think it would be another 5.9. It's an equal break across the whole thing. But let's just go see. We're going to put the European coordinates in and see where this new 5.3 is bringing us in. Separate quake, 5.3 separate quake. Yeah, look at that. Here's where the European new... I'm not going to mark it yet. We're going to wait for the USGS to weigh in on the third quake. But there it is. Let me turn off the rings. There we are. Or, yeah, the rings are all the way turned down. There we are. The new 5.3. So, the new 5.3 is reported at 8:17 as well. Maybe the Europeans will refine their coordinates and it won't be a third quake. Again, this is all on the fly. This is all happening in real time. You got to bear with me on this. That this is just suspicious to me when I see two at the exact same minute. These two new quakes, that again, the new quake is the 5.9 for sure. The Europeans reporting in at 5.3 most likely at a slightly different location. They triangulate their coordinates slightly differently. Look at the decimal points on the Europeans. See, it's 42, 42 north. Now we go back over to the USGS, take a look. 42, 302 north. Not only is it slightly different on the actual numbers, but we're taking it out a further decimal point. The USGS coordinates are much more accurate down to the foot or maybe the meter or whatever. But this is a significant break. Now, what I'd like to do is measure the distance between the two 5.9s and just see how far of a break actually happened in the course of 25 minutes. So 25-minute break. 12-mile long break. Wow. In kilometers, for my international viewers, that's about 20 kilometers. 30-minute, 20-kilometer break. Think about that. Now, wait. Let's look at this at an angle. We need to look at this at an angle because this is coming up through the plate. So really, the way we have to look at this is, I wish we could do a side profile down into the Earth, but I can't do that. But between these 2 points here, but coming up from this point up to this point. Do you follow me? You have to imagine it in your mind's eye. But coming up from down below, coming up, like a stair-step pattern maybe, coming up to the second 5.9. Now really, these are going between the folds and breaks and bends in the plate, right where we have an undersea mount volcano. I don't have the name on it. Got all my borders and place marks turned on. We just don't have that particular undersea mount name. We're on the Gorda Ridge segment, which is marked from the Smithsonian, which is a huge undersea mount segment. These are all undersea volcanoes, but you see how many there are out here. Maybe you don't. All these little specks out here, like there and there and there and here and here. These are all smaller ones, but then we have some really large undersea mounts, like this, for instance. Right? A whole chain of them in a row. And these are all volcanoes underwater. And the magma chamber moves over time, popping up new volcanoes in a line as the magma chamber is shifting. You see, you can follow it all the way down here. Well, the new earthquake is right up here, again, or right down here. And it's significant in size, the biggest in months. It's on both sides of this, coming up at an angle underneath, coming into North America. Now, wait just a second. I've got breaking news. We've got a major hotspot outbreak going across the whole northwest United States right now that I was not aware of until checking just now. Well, I have to turn on just the hotspots for us to see this. Man, this is a big deal too. Look at that. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. Now, where have I seen that shape before? Coming out of Montana, going down through Colorado, going back across Utah, like in this line, and then going across Nevada. But you see how this is traced out with the hot spots, right? Well, let's just go look at the earthquakes for the last week. This is, when you see this, I don't know how somebody could miss it, but let's turn off our magnitude so everybody can see the quakes. Do you see? Coming out of Montana, this is the USGS reported quakes for the last 7 days, 0.0 and greater. Coming out of Montana, going down across through Utah, making a bend going back down through Nevada, and then clustering out on the west coast. But it makes that general shape. Now we go back over here, and bam! This was not like this yesterday. The shift on this is phenomenal compared to where we were yesterday. It's a perfect match for the plate shifting across this. The Craton. And not just anywhere. Going up to the edge of the Craton, up into Montana, down through Colorado, down to the south. The hot spots now. We're not talking quakes. Normally we're talking quakes doing this trajectory. But the quakes and the hot spots are matching at the same time that we get a big quake off the west coast while the plate is shifting. The plate is shifting. Now, I would expect a new follow-up series of quakes to follow this down to the east by southeast, to go down into California. Now, whether they bring it up or down in magnitude, it looks like USGS just downgraded the earthquake. All right, slightly less earthquake, whatever. Go down into California. We have to warn a few areas. So let's find our halfway points between our current sets of noteworthy quakes. We have the 3s that came south of the Bay Area, and we have the 5 point whatever, 9 and 3 up off the coast. So what's the halfway point between the 3s and the 5s? That would put us right in here, which would put us into the Bay Area, Napa Valley, going right up into Clear Lake Volcano. If we want to get very particular about it, we could put it right into the body of water in between Napa Valley and the Bay Area, which I think is San Francisco Bay. Now, if we want to go further to the south, which we need to do, we need to also go to the east by southeast. This three-way point between these three sets of quakes, the quakes down here in Nevada, the magnitudes have now increased to the point where I think even the average person might notice that we're seeing a swarm break out in South Nevada. If anybody dares to go look this up, you might be shocked to see what's there. So we got a swarm in South Nevada, matching up with where all these hotspots are. But there's something here of significance other than the hotspots. Well, there's a famous location that everybody knows about that has a hotspot on it. The computer's filtering it out, by the way. It says it's a mistake, but a hotspot over Area 51 is something to be concerned about, wouldn't you say? But when you find out there's hotspots down over the nuclear test sites, these are all underground nuclear test sites here, and we have a big swarm outbreak of earthquakes taking place here. I can just randomly click on any one of these to get the information, but you guys can come in and, of course, do a little bit more inspection. I'll just click on one. Here's December 16, 1970, undisclosed kilotons. Well, that's great. Let's go find one that's got actual kilotons disclosed. U.S. nuke Operation Grommet Moreno, May 19, 72, 12 kilotons. But all of these, again, like I said, every single underground test here, hundreds of them, nukes. We've got hotspots in a ring around Area 51 and on the nuke site. We go back down over to the west. That's where we're swarming. Where the coordinates are, that's where we're swarming. So right here, swarming at the nuke site. We go over to the west by southwest, we're swarming back over here at Ridgecrest, China Lake. But there's a volcano there at least, across where all of this is. It's a volcanic field, so at least it's not a nuke test site. But I'm going to warn at the California-Nevada border, we're going to warn in the Bay Area. 2 different earthquakes on top of the third area that's going to get hit down here next to Salton Sea. I'm going to expect 3 different earthquakes now. Previously, I was looking for 2. Now we're going to look for 3. Previously, I was looking for it to be in the 4-ish range. Now I'm going to look for it to be in the 5 range. So let's look for it to be in low 5, upper 4, low 4.9, 5.0, 5.1, somewhere in that range, to come into the Bay Area, across over at the California-Nevada border. And let's get particular on this, where the 3 sets of quakes are. We go right down in the middle of all 3 for the new 5 to strike. Slightly different location. Guess what's there? Ubehebe Craters is right in the middle of all 3 sets of quakes. So we're going to warn Eastern California for that outbreak to take place in the next few days. Same for over on the coast. Should take place all in this week. 7 days at the most from today, and if we get to day 7 and nothing's hit, I will be back on here with egg on my face. That's fine. I'd rather have egg on my face than broken items on your floor, or worse. So I'm going to tell you when I see something coming. The way to think about this is a deluge of water from a big rainstorm. And you live along the river. The river is here, seen with the thick red lines. And then coming off the river are small offshoots of the river, small creeks, but they flow out and away instead of into it. So if there's a flow deposited up here, it will flow to the east by southeast, then across the craton. So this is just the first part of the forecast. The first part of the forecast is California in the next few days is going to go through the roof. Magnitude-wise, is going to go up big time, and we're already dealing with swarms. Think of the earthquakes that you see on the screen here right now. There's a lot of them. Think of it like a snare drum rolling. Drummer rolling the snare drum. But we're going to expect the bass drum to kick in now. The snare drum has already gone up. And actually, they've now brought in the toms, the mid-range drums. So we're hitting those 3s already, all the way across California. But that's about to go up again. So get ready for it. Don't ignore it. This is like a storm, like I said, with dropping a lot of rain. And if you live along a river and you ignore a storm with a lot of rain, you're going to be shocked when a flood comes. And everybody else will look at you and be like, how could you be shocked? You live along a river. And all you have to pay attention to is the storm and how much water is coming your way. Now we're talking about the same principle. The seismic flow is coming your way. And it should drop off the same sized earthquakes all the way across the way as it tries to spread across the wave tank, which is the craton in this case. Okay? So it's about to go through the roof. I would also expect 1 magnitude less to strike over here, right in the middle of the hot mess in Oklahoma. Oklahoma went back up to 3.3. Prepare to take another magnitude step up. We're going to go up to the mid-range to upper 4. If it's 5.9 off the west coast, I'd expect at least mid-range 4 to upper 4, 4.9, to strike in Oklahoma. And we'll warn central Oklahoma at the Kansas border, right next to the drill points for oil and gas. Texas should be a magnitude less, so 3.9 to 4.0 should come into Texas, but are we going to be shocked? We already have 2 3s there. It's just going to take the next magnitude step up, which is a 10-fold increase in power. I'd like to remind everybody, there's a stepping stone path already in the past day of 3s going across pretty much half the United States. You see it here, 48 hours? See all the 3s? Let's get the 2s out of there. Hold on. There we go. There's our 3s in the last 48 hours. So check it out. These other 3s are almost like an arrow pointing over to the east, or at least 2 of them are. And it's pointing in the general direction of the trajectory or the flow that we expect. Down on the south end, we go down and around the bend and come right back up. We're staying right on the inside edge of the craton itself. Think of it like a wave guide, guiding the wave across the plate. We go back to the start of the update, guys. 5.9 struck off the west coast. 2 of them. One of them is downgraded. I don't know. We'll wait and see. But let's just zoom in and see where they have it now. Let's get all the smallers out of there. Yep, they got it back at 5.9. Again, whether it's a 0.9 or 0.3 or even a magnitude under. We just saw a break take place, go across about a 15-mile region off the east edge of the Blanco Depression. Is that what it was? Or was it the North Garda Escarpment? Hold on. North Gorda Escarpment. I've got to check. It's worthy to note in case anything else happens. North Gorda Ridge segment. Let's just read it, just to find out the info. Northernmost of 5 segments of the Gorda Ridge lies immediately south of the Blanco Transform Fault that offsets the Gorda and Juan de Fuca oceanic spreading ridges. 65-kilometer-long segment is located about 200 kilometers west of the southern Oregon coast and has a deep 5 to 10 kilometer wide valleys at either ends. Okay, we don't have much really awesome information to get to you on that. That's just description of the area, which you can see on the screen here. So we have folds and bends in the plate, and these folds and bends in the plate go back to the fracture zone, which is a lightning bolt shape, or really a letter M shape, and we can go back over to the USGS map and see it here. So the Juan de Fuca is expected to move after we see movement up in Alaska, as I warned you 2 days ago and yesterday if you were watching live on Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube, which I am recording now, I will upload this, but if you're watching on YouTube, you have every opportunity to come over and watch live on Twitch 24/7, 365. It's free to watch. Anybody can watch. It's just the chat room if you want to be a paying subscriber, okay? So you can watch anytime and you can listen to me when I come on and issue the warnings live. It's kind of like live Weather Channel. You want to get it, you have to DVR it, right? I mean, they don't come back on and they might record it and play it back later, but... So I do intend to record and upload to YouTube more now, especially when it's getting to a level of this importance. When you have a 6 up in Alaska, next to Anchorage, followed by a near 6 off the coast, 2 different earthquakes, a break that's 15 miles across on the southern arm of the Juan de Fuca, and then California is going to get hit after this, plus the rest of the United States. It's going to go across the Craton and drop off the earthquakes at least as far as Oklahoma. And I know I've got viewers on the East Coast right now of the United States listening. And if they're not listening right now, they will at some point in the next day or two. You're going to get hit too. Eastern edge of the Craton. And we have to look between our previous sets of earthquakes to find where you're going to get hit. Here's the last 72 hours of earthquakes. And look at the spot up to the north. And look at the spot down to the south, 2.5 and 2.5. Now, the middle point between those two, if you go along this, the eastern edge of the Craton, from South Carolina up to southeast Quebec, and that middle point, I would say that puts us right in New York. New York, Delaware, New Jersey. So we watch everywhere from western New York, right at the actual Craton edge at the Great Lakes, basically, in South Ontario, and we watch across the whole state of New York, going over to the east, and then we get down to the south just a little bit, but I would watch right through here. That middle point between the previous sets of earthquakes. How big are we going to go? Well, if we're going up to near 5 in Oklahoma, that means something in the 3 to 4-ish range on the East Coast. 3 to 4? It's enough to get your attention. It's enough to knock things off shelves if it goes up above 4. So I hope I'm completely wrong and nothing hits. You know, a small earthquake comes rolling in the middle instead of a big one. Okay, I'd rather be wrong on the magnitude. Very rarely are we completely missing locations entirely. Now, I haven't even talked about Central America and South America yet, but let me just quickly sum this up, which I don't know how many viewers I have over here in the Caribbean, but we have a new 5.1 in Venezuela, and I've got a warning going right over here where the sets of rings overlap. So on the east side of where the rings overlap, but on the east side of the Caribbean, and the warning is for 5.0 plus activity. It's on its way. Do you see our small arrows to the south? Again, all these arrows have been on here for years. going over to the east. And we can go show you on the USGS map really quick. Here. Now, notice, the earthquake that struck, the USGS has nothing going across it. They need to connect that line. I guarantee you, this plate boundary connects all the way across. You know how I know? The earthquakes go across it. And, well, the mountains are shaped the same way. So they either didn't get in and map it, or maybe political reasons, or however you want to talk about it. Getting back to it over on my view here. We have a 5 here and a bunch of 3s and 2s, all going to add up, pull up over to the east on the edge of the plate boundary over here. Find the halfway point, go around the bend of the plate, and find the halfway point, the fulcrum point. Right? Okay, it's slightly offset from the center eastern portion because of the curve and bend in the plate. So we watch here for the break to take place, and what's coming across now is a 5 and a bunch of 3s. So something greater is going to pull up at the end before it transfers fully out to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, which already got hit once on the stair-step fracture zone to the south. But I would expect the new X, or well, not the new X, the middle point at the bare X that hasn't been hit yet, that middle point will be filled in by a significant 5 or greater in the next few days. The fulcrum points get hit. The wave travels across huge distances. It reaccumulates back up, hence the wave tank that I showed you here. And the more they pump in from one end or the other, push in towards each other or pull it out away, the more energy that's pumped into the mass, and it flows. It's very low frequency of some kind. Electromagnetic energy of some kind. We know it's electromagnetic energy. The hot spots, all the little red dots that are on the map here, look, I already found the studies. This past week, I rehashed them up on my YouTube page, which talks about semiconductor-like activity out of rocks, massive areas of rock caused by tensions from earthquakes. Yes, flow of electricity through the actual surface of the earth. Large volumes of electricity and heat associated with that. And the satellite's picking that up. The weather satellite, it filters it out, doesn't know what to do. That's what we're picking up. As the energy is traveling through the area, a bunch of hotspots from electromagnetic energy are released, and look where they're focused in on. They're focused in on the California-Nevada border, of all places. They're focused in right next to where the big earthquake just took place, out off the coast. These hotspots, unintentionally picked up by the weather satellite. Computer filtering them out, says just a mistake. But we know it matches. Nobody can convince me otherwise now. I was looking for an answer. I found it. Again, with the transfer of energy. Rocks under stress produce electric, basically, is a good way to put it. Okay, that is the update. Let's just recap for everybody one more time. Significant sized earthquakes have struck off the west coast of the United States. 5.9 is where we're at now. 2 different quakes. About 20, well, actually, let's find out exactly how far apart in time they were. It's good to know these things, guys. You got to remember this. Well, always remember the time that we had the 2 quakes. Oh, wait. 3 quakes? Something's up now. $817. 817, 752, 752. Okay. I have to check the times because that'll tell us whether they're duplicate quakes or different quakes. So we have 2 different quakes, both being reported by 2 different agencies. Hence we have 4 earthquakes on the screen here right now, all dealing with the same quake. 2 5.9 struck. And one struck at 7:52 UTC, and the other struck at 8:17 UTC. So 17 plus 8, 25 minutes apart. And that is a short time period to have 15 miles, about 15 miles, a little bit under 12 to 13 miles. Fracture. Breaking at one end, breaking at the other. And let's make note of where it broke from and where it broke to. It broke from the west to the east. 25 minutes, and it came up, most likely, at an angle. Let's get the depth on each. 10 kilometers? Oh, no. No. They're doing the 10-kilometer thing. Okay, they're going to have to compute that depth. 10-kilometer thing is auto-generated by the computer. They don't screw around with it very much unless there's some reason to, or they want to know the depth. I would say we absolutely need to know the depth on the first and the second quake. Not just we, they, me, you, we all need to know how shallow or deep these were. That's going to dictate further action in the future, and it'll just help to know in general, scientifically speaking, for catalogs. So we're talking about a 9-kilometer depth at one and 15 at the other. Did they literally just... Hold on. Did they just change it? I think they did. Well, okay. Hey, you know, I'm glad they've got the updated information now. So now we've got 9 kilometers and 15. So it went from shallow to deep. How is that even possible? Hold on. I'm not trusting that. I'm just not trusting it yet. So we'll wait on the depth. If it went shallow down, then we're going down along the subduction, which means we need to check the tremors. If that's accurate. If that's accurate, it broke down at an angle instead of up at an angle. And if it broke down at an angle, then it's going down along the actual quote-unquote subduction zone, which is different than the Juan de Fuca fracture zone out here. Juan de Fuca fracture zone, of course, the jagged edges. The subduction zone, going down at an angle down below North America, or supposedly it is, I would more describe it like a bathtub, where this is the bottom and it goes up. But a break going down means shifting. Means the plate is starting to move. Big time. 12 miles in an instant. 25 minutes, 12 miles. So let's just... It didn't move 12 miles. I mean, for a 12-mile distance, it broke all at once in 25 minutes. So let's go and see what the tremors are showing. Wow. Now, they haven't updated for today, but as of last night, all of a sudden we flared back up to 179 tremors. All these little red dots on the screen here are little vibrations as the plate shifts. Now, these vibrating points, hold on, let me make sure you guys can see this. Yeah. These vibrating points here are really tied to what's out in the ocean, which I don't even think you can see on this map out here. The jagged edges of the Juan de Fuca on the north side, pointing into the spot that's shifting over here at Vancouver Island. These three arrow-like shapes almost, pointing in here, started to swarm and shake and shimmy yesterday where the red dots are, on the north side. Now on the south side, down here, break from west to east, going down at an angle. So the plate's shifting. I would expect a new slow slip. I don't forecast slow slips. It's not part of my forecast or anything, but I would certainly expect a boatload of tremors to break out over the next few days, unless they were to somehow hide it or turn it off. I don't know if they would or not. Usually when a lot of people are paying attention, they tend to go through the information a little bit too much and cut out a little bit. Do you follow me on that? They tend to censor it a little bit, but we'll wait and see. I would encourage you to have an earthquake plan. It's a good time for you to think about having an earthquake plan in the West Coast areas where we have the warnings going. So Bay Area, California-Nevada border, down at Salton Sea. 3 different 5s do, and then again, we're dealing with a 5 most likely at Napa Valley, a 5 over at the California-Nevada border, right down at Long Valley, basically. Hold on. Actually, I have to change that. At Ubehebe Craters, south of Long Valley, north of Ridgecrest, right here in between the triangulated point between all the 3 sets of quakes. And then Salton Sea, everybody knows where Salton Sea is in California, down here east by southeast from LA or east by northeast from San Diego. And we're looking at 3 different sets of 5s that should come rolling in there. Then over to the Midwest United States, Oklahomans, you have time to get ready. And anytime above 4 comes in, we saw 4.2, take down chimneys and facades off houses. We're talking about something that could be a little bigger than 4.2 coming in there. Maybe even up to 4.9. Overall, in Texas, we're talking about 3.9 to 4.0. But look, come on, look at the line of quakes already. Do you see how it matches? It's making a trajectory. It matches the southern edge of the craton. It's already shifting in the last couple days. East Coasters, New York, all the way from the Canada border. I know it's more than 200 miles, but I have to issue the warning across New York, going over to New Jersey. So keep watch there, and it could go up to near 4.0. I think it would be more in the 3-ish range, but it will be enough to be felt and reported in on the news if it gets felt. So back to having an earthquake plan. You need to know what to do when an earthquake strikes. It's basic stuff. I wouldn't know. I've never been in an earthquake of any kind, of any size. Knock on wood. How ironic, right? But from what I've heard, you need to take shelter underneath a table or desk to protect yourself from falling objects. Make sure it's a wooden or metal table or desk, not glass. And if you're going to be taking shelter, it would probably also be a good idea to have a place to go after the earthquake in case your structure is compromised. The chance of it falling down is pretty slim unless you're in a giant stone stack structure of some kind that's not reinforced. So you wouldn't really need to go outside right when the earthquake's happening, but after a big event happens, you might need to, and then it's dangerous. You're talking about power lines. You're talking about things falling off buildings still. You need to have a pre-designated area to go, to check in with people. I'll leave that up to you. You can also stay put in your house. If you're a shelter-in-place person, you need to have an emergency kit either way. Now, I'm not talking about the long-term supply of food. I'm talking about a backpack that has the basic necessities in it to get you through a few days. Seasonal specific, and you need to have that ready to go by a door. Don't just put it somewhere far away in a closet, hard to get. Make sure the people in your household know how to get it. Also, think about work. When you're at work and your coworkers, I know, but maybe talk to your management, or if you have your own company, think about it. Have a plan at work. Have a plan at home. I'm not trying to be too heartbeat, but at a time like this, come on, it's a new set of 5.9s on the West Coast. 12-mile long break going down below the plate. It's nothing to ignore. It's the first one in many months. And what comes out of that? That's the other thing. What comes out of that? So we all know what comes out of that. California gets hit following movement out off the coast. When the Juan de Fuca shifts, you can expect everything next to it and downstream from it to move. And downstream implies there's a flow, which, by the way, you can see the flow across the whole United States in the last 7 days. If I turn off the magnitudes and you just look at the rings themselves, starting up in the northwest, and these are the felt quakes. Here's all the microquakes, if you include them in. So it makes a ring around the west coast, the edge of the craton, the purple part on this diagram. And it goes up to the edge of the craton and goes down through Texas, then pools back up at the drill points in Oklahoma, a few oddballs, but only one oddball, really, up here at the Kansas border. Colorado border, drill points, oil and gas. Oil and gas all across Texas. Every single one of these earthquakes is coming in directly next to a drill point. But it makes a trajectory going up into Oklahoma, where it's broken apart from all the drilling. Then we go over to a few small quakes at the N-shaped bend at the New Madrid seismic zone. Naturally speaking, we go back up the East Coast and drop off a few smalls up the East Coast. We're waiting for a break in the middle in between each spot. Hey, here's another spot that's going to break in the middle that I have to mention. Alabama, Mississippi. It's not like we're talking about earthquakes in Alabama and Mississippi very much. So I have to warn them. How big? 3-ish. If it's going to be 3s up on the East Coast to near 4, it should be a 3 to near 4 down in Mississippi, Alabama. Guess what? Tuscaloosa. Thousands of drill points down here in Alabama. Do you guys know about that? The oil and gas? Maybe the people down there do, but yeah, they drilled the hell out of the South. All right. Much love, everyone. Word up. Let's check in with the chat room on Twitch. Just make sure everything's hunky-dory before we get out of here. This is the chat room on Twitch. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, this is a pre-recorded event, recorded live before my audience on Twitch. You're welcome to come over and watch anytime. The people in chat turn up information, turn up earthquake news, data, all day and all night long, whether I'm there or not. I even use the chat room to get information from them. They're awesome. Everybody in there is doing their part. And if you want to come over and check it out, again, you can read it for free. What's up in chat? Okay, we're good. We're good. I'm just checking in to make sure that there's nothing else going on. You guys sometimes pick up on stuff while I'm talking for an hour and a half. We're saving this as a video. It's 4:05 a.m. Central Time. I'm going to go upload it to YouTube and do a premiere. Why not? I might as well make some coffee and stay up all night. I heard about the meteor inside the volcano. We'll talk about that at a separate point. We don't need to get people too excited. Electromagnetism has weird effects, guys, but we can get into it at a different point, okay? Much love. Peace out. Be safe, everybody. Oh, and most importantly, these are my taglines, so to speak. This is my tagline, which is, don't be scared. You need to be prepared. Straight up. Peace out.